All right, so now we're going to go ahead to portraits. And again, I want to reiterate the importance of when you're retouching a portrait, it should look like the person, but the person on their best day. Not their best day 25 years ago, but their best current day. They should look refreshed. They should look like they just came back from a nice vacation. Not necessarily tan. We're not talking that. We're talking refreshed and relaxed, okay? So again, what I just talked about here was making sure you talk to your client. Say, hey, you, what would you like to see done on this portrait? If he or she says, you know what, I've got a couple of spots right here I want to get rid of them. If they don't mention this mole or this mole over here, I really don't think you should touch it, because that's part of who they are. They may identify with those being important characteristics for them. If they say, you know what, I've got a few deeper lines in here, maybe you can minimize those, or maybe you can get rid of some of the crepiness. By the way, here's my anti-smoking plug. Don't smoke. It's disgusting. It will kill you. It's addictive. And as you can see, later on in life, it gives you lots and lots and lots and lots of little tiny lines around your mouth. So that is my anti-smoking. I can't stand smoking. Please don't. All right. So away from my public service announcement, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start doing some basic editing. First things first, you're going to Control J. Always, always, always. Everything that we're doing on this is what they call destructive. It happens directly to the picture and I can't undo it. So if I'm not making a copy of it, if I go too far, I can't delete it. And once I love what I did, sometimes I'll even copy that and work on the copy on the next stage. So I have multiple, almost like you write papers and you have drafts, just like that, okay? So, as we're going here, I also encourage you to use your Control Plus or your Control Minus to zoom in and out. All right, so let's go back to these little dark spots here. There's a couple of tools over here that I do want to introduce you to. We've covered a lot of like the brush tools and our magic wand and our quick select, those kinds of things. But there's a whole classification. Let me just shut that down. There's a whole classification of things in here that we haven't touched upon yet. Okay, so in here, we don't have to worry so much about the red eye tool because of the way our cameras are functioning in more modern times. I can show you that if you need that. But we've got a spot healing brush. And if you notice, I will come up here. I will reduce the hardness. You want a nice soft edge so that when you are healing or spot retouching, it's like putting concealer on something. It's blending it in. It's not just a big giant spot on their face, okay? So I'm going to reduce that hardness, if not all the way down, pretty close to it, okay? And then the size I can control, again, with the bracket keys on my keyboard. I don't need to do that and check it out. That's too difficult to do, okay? So I've got the spot healing brush, and what you can see right now is I click. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Watch right there. I'm going to click. It's going to think for a minute. And it's going to make some edits, or what it feels like what you're asking. It's going to click. I might even click and drag a little bit. You can see that that actually worked pretty darn well. So that's the spot healing brush, okay? Now, it didn't work so well right here. Do you see how I still have some evidence of the brown spot to its right and left? I may need to go to our healing brush, and our healing brush says, hey, if my spot healing brush didn't work, this is like my next line of action. What I do is the same thing. I want it to be a soft edged brush, and then I can change the size, make it a little bit bigger, make sure I'm covering it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a clear piece of skin. So a piece of skin that kind of matches with that in value. So I'm going to go right above it. I'm going to press the Alt key, and you'll see that when I press the Alt key, I get those crosshairs. Alt, and I click on the good piece. Then I come over here, and I click right on that section. So basically what I did was I took us, and you can see the before, and you can see the after. So I took us to a place where she still looks very natural. She looks lovely still. She's not, it's not an unnatural edit. I can continue right over to there. I can swipe a little bit. I can say I'm pretty darn happy with that. I may go back to my spot healing brush, and maybe there's like a little red mark right there. I might come back in here. Biggest thing I want to make sure you realize though is don't sit here like painting the whole thing and expect your results are going to be beautiful. It doesn't happen all the time. I usually would do like sort of one wrinkle at a time, that sort of thing, okay? Go back over it. Again, next line of defense. Like that might have removed just enough to tone it down. Next line of defense would then be going over here to my regular healing brush, okay? So we've covered spot healing brush, which is just a simple click. We've covered healing brush, which is an alt click. And then we're going to move to the next one, which is a clone stamp. So the clone stamp would be like the most severe of areas. So I may come over here. Maybe she says, you know, I need to get rid of this. And for some reason, I can't get rid of it in any other way other than what I'm going to use right now. My clone stamp is located in this. So you've got a clone stamp and a pattern. We want clone. So that's our third line of defense. Again, we're going to go to a very soft edged brush. I'm going to pick a piece of skin very close to it that visibly is quote unquote perfect. What I feel should be right here. And that I'm going to pick right below there. Again, I go to Alt and there's my crosshairs. I click on that piece right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put it up there. You can already see the effect. I haven't even clicked. I can click and just wiggle just a little bit. Okay? Now, this is the important part about clone stamp. If I am grabbing a part of the lip and I want to move that over for some reason, I Alt and I click. That's a perfect piece of lip that I need. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it right here. It covers something. I'm going to move it. And then suddenly, do we see what's happening? What am I doing? I'm giving her another mouth. Because watch on the screen. Do you see that little plus sign? That plus sign says what it is copying. So because, let me get rid of all that. Because I alt clicked right here, my plus sign is going to start over here. So I'm going to start, let's say, oh my God, that's perfect, exactly what I wanted. But let me do a little bit more. And pretty soon, you see how it's tracing that bottom edge of the lip? I'm making a brand new piece of her mouth over there. So you need to use that clone stamp very, very carefully. Because it's only really meant to be used for a small section. If you keep using it without re-sampling, without re-alt clicking on a new piece, you're going to end up with disaster zone. So that's why that's like a third line of defense for the most severe areas. Okay? So super, super important. You can see that was the one clone stamp that I did. I'm in my history. That was a one clone stamp. Again, she's still looking really, really natural. But we're just reducing those things that she asked us to reduce. Okay? Now, as I keep going, I can go into this menu, and I've got this little guy called a blur tool. The blur tool will do just that. It'll blur, but you have to use it very carefully, because if you use it in an area that has some like edge and definition, like her eyes, that sort of thing, you're going to end up in like sort of a disaster zone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. I'm going to make sure my brush is very soft. I might bring it up just a little bit. Make my cursor larger. And I may pass through here just a couple of times. Okay, give it a chance to finish. The strength is at 50%. It went from here to here. I am seeing the most minute of differences. Not even worth doing. So I may need to bring that strength up, and I may need to come in here with a smaller and almost sort of scrub in some circles just to minimize that a little bit more, just to get rid of anything that may be too fine to correct in any other way. So we went from that, you can see it's a little bit darker, a little bit more defined, to that which has softened it up a little bit. So again, it can be very gentle. With my strength, if I put that strength all the way up and I move something, it's going to blur it out pretty quick. Like right there, I did this area. Obviously, I would not usually do that area, but I wanted you to see the difference with that strength up pretty high. So I'm going to take that away because I definitely don't want her eyelashes to be blurry. Okay? So that is the blur tool. And then we can move on to a little bit more of a severe, sort of an airbrush look, but I think that'll be the next lesson. So again, today, I want you to make practice of the following tools. You're going to come into here, and your first line of defense, the very first top tool, is your spot healing tool. That's a simple click, and let's see what happens. Second line of defense, it's the regular healing brush. That's where I grab something that looks good, Alt, and I click on the good area, and I bring it in over to that area that maybe didn't respond well to my spot healer. Okay? Third line, which is the most severe of areas, is going to be our clone stamp. That clone stamp is where I could literally, let me zoom out. I could use a bigger clone stamp. I could Alt and click on that eyeball, and I could give her another eyeball on her forehead. Obviously, that is not natural, so if we're looking for a natural retouching, that's not what you want to do, but that gives you the idea of what a clone stamp will do. It clones a piece over where she might need some extra assistance, okay? We did a little bit with the blur tool, but again, that's very subtle, very, very gentle changes. And then, like I said, we can go to a little bit more severe in the coming days. But today, you're going to get a chance to work with that on your portrait. These tools are great for maybe you have a scar, or maybe you have a pimple that you're worried about. Again, I want you looking like you, because there's nothing better than what you look like, but just you feeling good about that portrait and touching up as you see fit. If you're uncomfortable with that, please do the portrait of your partner. And if your partner is uncomfortable with that, please let me know. I can get you this portrait. I already have it saved to the P drive for you, so we can get you guys moving with playing around with this portrait retouching. I'm going to upload this. You guys have great access to it as well as me, so let's get going.